Hello, in this demonstration you are going to learn how we can make a perspective view and render it using this kitchen layout. So let's get ourselves started. The first thing that I would do, let's put it small so that we can start drawing on the large piece of paper. So the first thing that we want to do is figure out the best point of view for our structure, for our rendering. So what I would do is first draw typical perspective, just two walls like this, and then I can modify them later, but at least this would get me started. Just two walls. Typically, if a height of a wall might be 8 feet or 9 feet, you have already an idea where your horizon line would be, because we are not 8 feet tall. Roughly 5'6", 5'8", 5'4", so it ranges, but we can consider the horizon line as being this line that I have drawn here. So that would give us a vanishing point somewhere there. The other wall, this is a vanishing point over there, this is another vanishing point. I could do something like this. Maybe finish it off here. That would give me the starting point of my perspective. The other vanishing point falls outside my page. So I could draw this line for the floor, but maybe I don't want to. I will just leave it like that. The next thing that I will do is, for example, if I can consider that my wall on the kitchen would finish here, then I would start marking based on my sketch. I'm looking at the sketch upside down. I did a printout of this and I have it right next to me. That is a great visual aid to help me figure out where things go. And then I can place, for example, my window on the wall, roughly where I think it would belong. It could be higher or lower still, but at least I have a placement. The next thing that I would do would be to mark on the floor anything, on the wall, anything that would be noticeable. Such as, for example, in this wall we have a little notch that is carved into the wall, and I would have to mark it. It's right here. So I just drew it. Alright, so we have then the basics. The next thing that I would do would be to mark on the floor the outline of the cabinets. According to the floor plan that I have, they go along the wall like this. And then I should be able to raise vertical lines to start marking them, to start giving them some depth. Alright, I made a mistake there. Let's make it a bit bigger. So the cabinets on the floor, once you raise vertical lines, will look more or less like this. Just the cabinets. I haven't done anything else yet regarding tall objects such as refrigerators or things like that. Okay, so just the counters. I have to go deeper over here. Something like this. If you made a mistake, you correct it. At this stage, I'm gonna take an eraser and start erasing some lines that I think I will not be needing, such as these floor lines. I'm gonna redraw these cabinets over here one more time just to be more accurate. So we get something like this. Just the basics. And then I'm going to mark on the ceiling the same cabinets, because we have a few that are wall hung, right? So we would have to do the same thing. but this time it would be like drawing the cabinets upside down. And you see now how the window that I drew before is out of place. I didn't quite get it right. The height at least, right? So now what I'm going to do is erase these lines. And I have the basic lines for my perspective. Let's draw over here that. Let's continue drawing my cabinets over here. I know that this cabinet will have a little notch carved in. My cabinets would be expanded this way. Alright, so something like this. Let's erase the lines that we do not need, so that we don't get confused of what is what. Alright, so we got now the main cabinet lines, and now we can start thinking, you know, if we have a place for the refrigerator or the or an island, the sink, we can start working on this. For example, we know that the refrigerator is placed at the corner to fit in this deeper space. So let's work on it. I'm not sure yet what type we would have, but we can block it off this way. It is the refrigerator, goes top to bottom, and now I have these lines drawn. Okay. Now let's figure out where the range would be. According to the floor plan is placed over here, the lines that I am going to draw right now would go to the vanishing point on the right. That's very important. That's a common mistake. These two lines on the countertop that would not go to the vanishing point on the right. They have to go there. Another element that would make your perspective more believable would be a toe kick, right? So we would have to start drawing it. And this line would have to be redefined slightly shorter, minus the range. I don't know if the range has one or not. So it feels like the cabinets that we have, it looks like the cabinets that we have over here are shorter. Not as deep. So let's get them drawn or adjusted. It only makes sense, right? So that you can get closer to the range without really hitting your head in the cabinets. And now we would be able to start drawing some lines to define them. So it looks like we would have something like that. Okay. The ranges of the cabinets, let's mark first the center. Remember, these two lines that I just drew need to go to the vanishing point on the right, the other ones on the vanishing point on the left. And now the fun begins. I can actually draw more detail. Not really sure what type of oven we would be working with, but let's assume that we would have, you know, just for this exercise sake, I would get some basic lines drawn over here. We can now start adding a countertop edge, again to make the perspective more believable. A backsplash. Again, I'm not sure if that would be exactly the case, or if we would have tile going from top to bottom on that back space. Let's draw the backsplash over here. I'll delete this line here, and we can start adding more detail to the window. We can do some detail like this. This line would not really be there. I'm not sure if I want to add a line there. So, okay, so we got our window situated there. We can pull back and see how we are doing. It feels like our window would need to be slightly bigger, so you are certainly entitled to make changes in your design to make it feel like it is what it's supposed to be. That feels better. Okay, let's erase that line there. That's important to be erased so that we can have a feeling for the countertop there. Now let's start adding the sink. The sink would be placed somewhere here. And now let's zoom in and get more detail drawn to it. The sink comes out slightly out of the floor plan. Maybe it's one of those old style sinks like farm sinks. And it's a double sink. So let's get this drawn. The lines that I'm going to draw now, common mistake, would not go to the vanishing point, but they have to go there. And then these lines here will certainly make the sink appear deep. Without those lines, the sink still would appear flat. Alright. Not sure what type of sink we have or how it finishes, how it ends on the floor, but let's draw some lines like this. Now let's add some plumbing, just preliminary, so that we start believing that this is a sink. Alright, so we got the main things figured out, and now, very important, we have to mark on the floor where the island would be situated. So roughly it's lined up with the sink, and the end is lined up with the edge of our range somewhere here. And now I would have to bring vertical lines to get the island drawn where it needs to be. Then the edge of the island coincides with the edge of this cabinet here. So let's draw it there, and now bring these two lines down. So you see, a lot of the detail that I was drawing will have to be erased because it would be blocked by the island. So let's go ahead and do that. Again, this is just a preliminary pencil drawing just to get everything situated. Once we have that, we can start adding more detail. It seems like we have a detail like this, so oops, I erased too much too soon. So this portion here cantilevers, so we would have to draw it like this. It means then that we would see part of the sink over here that I erased earlier, and this edge over here would be drawn in this fashion. This line would be erased, and now I would have the sink drawn like that. Okay. So once I have these elements, we can start adding extra detail, such as the type of cabinets that we want to have in our kitchen. Certainly this window appears small. I think made a mistake here. We would have to cut the cabinets, obviously, so that we can have some light coming in. The cabinet needs to be drawn like this. Alright, there we go. So now we have a proper window. So you see, you need to keep the fluidity of your drawing so that we can make adjustments as we go. If you made a mistake, we can certainly go ahead and rework it. So that's more like my window. I made it taller. Obviously now the cabinet doesn't fly over the window, so that we would have better light coming in. And we can start adding, if you want, mullions and to divide the panes if you want to, but I'll work with a very light pencil stroke. Some hardware for the window. Now I'll work with slightly thicker outlines to define the edges of my cabinets. I don't know if I would need to add some sort of a valance or element here. Let's assume that I would have something there. Alright, something like that. I'm not really sure if I have crown molding specified in my design, but let's add one. It would be very important that this corner would be drawn correctly with the angle so that it gives the illusion that we have that crown molding situated correctly. Alright, so we got then the basic. Let's draw here the toe kick on the bottom. And now, very important, what you want to do in this interior too would be to show some grid lines. I'm not sure what type of floor we would be working with, but let's assume we would have a floor grid. We can maybe suggest something like this. It could change later, but at least this gets us started. Maybe something like that. And then some lines going the opposite direction. Okay, so now we have a better understanding how the interior really would feel on this kitchen. Let's make this crown molding bigger here, pointier, to make it more dominant in this space. And now this is when your design would really come alive. We have the bare bone structure, we have the skeletal elements on our design, and this is when we would really have fun adding all the extra details. Let's add a couple of lines here for reflection, a couple of lines here for reflection, and we would be ready now to apply some color.